one foot in this world, but one foot out of it. Scorpio, your intuition and dreams are so powerful, you may have to speak on it this Tuesday. Venus turns to retrograde.
Jane, what are you laughing at so hard?
This ridiculous horoscope.
Look, a lot of people rely on them. Maybe we should put it to the test.
I'll give it a try.
Let's do it.
To put astrology to the test, Dr. Schultz flew across the world to Moscow, home of one of the world's greatest astrologers, Boris Izraitel.
I met with Boris for a few hours, both in person in May and by Skype in September, to discuss what astrology is and how relevant it is to our modern mentality, science, and lifestyle. Boris also spoke with Jane by Skype. He made quite a few rather surprising remarks about what Madame Fortune has in store for Jane and discussed the upcoming November elections. Because his predictions are time-sensitive, we decided to release this preliminary episode about astrology to give you a chance to hear his predictions. The election is around the corner, so we'll show you Boris's comments on that first. In a few months, we will post a follow-up episode where we'll discuss the aftermath of Boris's predictions to see whether they were accurate or not, looking at what happened or did not happen in Jane's life and what was the outcome of the elections. We'll also go into more detail about the fascinating study of astrology and explain how it works. So, what Boris said about the elections was recorded on September the 2nd. And all the stuff about you was recorded on May 6th, which is Freud's birthday. And the separate conversation with Boris, when him and I were walking around and standing and talking, was recorded the day before on September 5th in Moscow.
And I stayed in New York City and spoke with Boris by Skype.
And I didn't waste any time and started from asking the most important question.
Listen, my friend, how is it possible that such a nice, intelligent, educated person like you practices this BS? No one believes in astrology.
This is a very good question. By the way, many contemporary historians ask the same question. Why such prominent people like Kepler, Galileo, Giordano Bruno practice this astrology?
These people practice astrology?
They practice astrology.
Next thing you are going to tell me is that even Isaac Newton practiced astrology.
And Isaac Newton practiced astrology.
I also didn't hold back on the tough questions. I was born at a certain time of day, in a certain year, certain part of the world, certain month. You know, I'm a Scorpio according to, my date of birth. What the does that have to do with my personality when I come out of my mother's vagina?
No. The main thing is that the main principle of astrology is not that time is an active factor that affects us. The main idea is that everything in the world is connected very closely. And since we are part of the universe, we depend on the universe very strongly. For me right now, and for many intelligent people, it is hard to imagine the opposite. That we live in the universe and somehow do not depend on it. Can you explain to me how such a situation could be possible?
So he didn't really answer my question. He kind of gave me the finger.
Yes, he did, but I'm going to make him explain it later on.
Good.
I understand that you are not following the politics. You are at home talking to your astrological clients and reading the news. Still, as an astrologist, can you comment on what is the likelihood of Republicans losing the November elections?
I looked into this interesting problem. I have to say that political prognosis is a very complicated undertaking. It would be good to have a large team of people working on this question. They would have to follow through all possible options, take a look at various natal charts. For example, to predict the outcome of these elections, one needs precise charts of all the contenders, both the Republicans and the Democrats.
All of them. There are hundreds of them.
Yes. Then we need all individual states, because these are separate entities. We'd need to analyze the natal chart of the U.S. as an entity, and so on, including the chart of the president. I decided to analyze only the chart of the President of the United States. I specialize in individual astrology, so it is easier for me to choose a particular individual and take a look at the elections from his perspective, especially considering that, in a sense, these elections are, again, the second election of Trump.
At least that is what we are being told.
As a person who predicted Trump's victory in 2016, I have interest in how he does.
Did you publish your original 2016 predictions anywhere?
Is having 10 witnesses good enough?
Probably. For example, I thought until the very end that he is going to lose and was very surprised.
Well, I was surprised when there was a moment when Hillary had a 10-point lead. I double-checked everything. People were laughing at me, saying he simply could not win. What could I say? I saw that he is going to be very pleased and happy on the evening of November 6, 2016. What were the options? That he made a deal with Hillary Clinton? That he will take a fall at the last moment? Will play the fool and lose intentionally? But how could she award him for that? Give him a lot of money? But he's a billionaire. Is he in need of money and she'll give him more? Was it a plausible explanation?
Other people discussed it too, by the way. So you based your predictions on what data? What did you see in his chart that made you think he'll be happy?
Well, there were many signs in his chart, including classical, very well-known indicators. For example, there is a star called Regulus. This star indicated a very high position in society from the very beginning of astrology. It is called a royal star. This star is an alpha in the constellation of Leo. In his chart progressive, the sun was connecting with Regulus at the moment of the elections. This even alone is sufficient to predict his victory. But there are many other similar indicators.
So, was it connecting in his chart this November, at the time of elections in the United States?
Nothing special is connecting. It means there is status quo. Everything remains the same. I'll say more. His maximum level of problems was present last summer, and from that moment on, they are gradually dissolving.
Can you please say why astrologically there were tensions and problems last summer?
Direction of his Uranus reached Mars in his natal chart.
Yes, Mars means conflict.
Uranus and Mars are the planets responsible for dramatic, drastic changes. Besides, his progressive moon reached a position similar to the moment of his last divorce, with splitting the property with his ex. At the same moment, he also filed for bankruptcy. It was a very difficult moment for him.
But it was some time before, in the past, right?
Yes, in the past. And he experienced a similar emotional state during the summer of the last year.
But nothing happened. He held his position.
Yes, we are talking about his subjective state, the way he felt. But from that moment on, all this tension begins to dissipate. Maybe in waves, but decreasing nevertheless. And beginning from November, things become very quiet.
From November of last year or this year?
This year.
I see. So in your opinion, what is going to happen with November elections this year?
In my opinion, there are not going to be any dramatic changes. On the contrary, there's a chance that Republicans will perform better than Democrats.
You made some pretty dramatic predictions.
No kidding.
I don't know how to feel about that one. I gotta be honest. Could go either way.
Well, first of all, it's just what an astrologer, although very good one, from Russia, mind you, who knows nothing about the situation in the United States says. But then let's see what's going to happen.
I can't wait.
Okay.
I think it's better to conduct an experiment using Jane as a subject. Okay? You are going to talk to her tomorrow by Skype. You never met her, right? I did not tell you much about her. The data about her you have is what she told you by email when you requested for some dates. What did you ask her?
A few events that were important.
Give us some examples so our viewers could understand what usually is of interest to astrologer when he collects the initial data.
It is important to know significant events in the past.
Was her date of birth important?
Very much so.
How precise should be the time of birth?
Ideally, plus minus 1 minute.
But no one remembers that. How do we deal with that?
That is why we ask people about the events that definitely happened and affected them. And we conduct a reverse procedure.
How is it called?
Rectification.
Could you explain it to us uninitiated, ignorant people?
It is a reverse procedure. As one can elaborate on the future using the precise astrological chart, one also can restore the precise chart knowing exact time of events that happened in the past. Rectification is like putting a puzzle together, when each event has to find its place in the chart. And suddenly all events fit into a coherent, harmonious picture.
So I connected with Boris by email, and he asked me a couple of basic questions, some that you might expect for an astrology type reading and some that I didn't really expect. So he asked me my birthday, obviously, the exact time of birth down to the minute, and then the place of birth, the exact place, the birthdays of my mother, father, and brother, and then this is the part that I didn't expect. He asked me for 10 significant dates in my life,
Right.
where 10 dates where something significant happened, whether it was good or bad. And then I explained what happened on that date. So like one of them was when I found out that I got accepted to my PhD program.
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Another significant date is when I submitted my master's thesis and broke up with my boyfriend. And another one was when one of my cats passed away. So those kinds of things.
And that was it? Meaning the next time you spoke to him was when?
The next time I spoke to him was in May, when he had created my chart and told me who I am and what my future holds.
Jane, did you get your natal chart?
I did, and I read a little bit about how to interpret it, but it still makes no sense to me, so I'm hoping you can explain what it means.
You asked me what is unique about you.
I did, yes. What makes me special?
What makes you special is a combination of seriousness and depth with an ability to adapt quickly. It is a rather rare combination.
Oh.
There are also more frequently encountered qualities.
So far, the astrology is working, or understanding my personality goes. We keep talking about me, my favorite subject.
There are also more frequently encountered qualities. For example, being critical to yourself.
Ding, ding, ding.
This quality is not as rare, but in your case, it is very strong.
Well, so far, I'm sold on this. Although I do have some questions.
This dissatisfaction with yourself might be helpful to a certain extent because it makes you to advance in life, to improve yourself. It is important to watch for it not to cross over a certain level. If it is too pronounced, too intense, it may lead to self-destruction.
Oh, really?
Living in New York City makes this dissatisfaction with yourself stronger. The New York lifestyle calls for serious measures to control. Maybe you should take additional measures that it would help you to trust in yourself, to accept yourself.
Well, that's what brain pills and therapy are for, and I've done both of those.
Your life force is very strong. You have a lot of energy and you need to spend it on something. The problem is to find the way to channel this energy.
I mean, I usually channel that energy towards Netflix, but I guess sometimes I go for something a little bit more engaging and creative.
Even your day-to-day routine life is at a higher than usual level.
And this level, does that mean that I have to deal with more intense or like difficult situations?
Absolutely.
Okay, because that definitely feels like my life.
If everything is quiet, not much is happening, Not only are you like everyone else, you actually suffer because then this energy is spent on self-destruction. It eats you up.
I've never gone towards self-destruction before in my entire life. I don't even know what that means. That's sarcasm. It means I do.
In the course of the year, you will have to deal with multiple issues.
Okay.
I think that there is a high possibility that at the end of this year, you'll move.
Did you tell Boris that my lease was up in September?
I don't know that actually.
The period from November to December of 2018 to approximately the middle of 2020 is characterized by a strong internal drive to build your own family. It is a very acute desire. Considering this emerging need to have your own family, it is very likely that between November 2018 to the summer of 2020, you will get married.
I mean, I hope so.
I have to tell you, I've known Boris for many, many years, and I'm totally, completely, thoroughly amazed by him coming forward with such a strong prediction. I also spoke with Boris after our official breach was over. We were drinking tea, that's what Russians usually do, and he made additional, rather dramatic comments and predictions.
Did you talk about everything you saw? Or you decided not to reveal some unpleasant things?
There is one thing. I did not say that most likely that there are going to be problems with her mother.
Since we are talking about parents, her mother, for example, today is a very special day. Today is Sigmund Freud's birthday, correct? What date is it today?
May 6th.
And tomorrow is even a more important date, your birthday, yes? So we are having this conversation on May 6, 2018. Nothing happened with Jane's mother yet, thanks God. How soon do you think?
In a course of a year.
In the course of a year, meaning by May of the next year?
Yes, by May of the next year. But because there are intense, stressful events in November, December of this year, maybe this indicates the time of her mother's issues. And it could be connected somehow with the move, especially if her mother does not live in New York.
I have no idea.
So here's the list of the predictions that Boris made about me on May 6, 2018. Jane has major life-changing events in November through December. Possible engagement, moving to another location, and a crisis with my mother's health around the same time.
Boris's prognosis for November elections. No change for Trump, possible gains for Republicans.
In our last episode, we tallied all the votes from What is Your Main Organ? And the winner is the brain. We're going to continue to keep this tally going as we ask more people what their main organ is.
Hello Mathieu, can you tell me what is your main organ?
Pour moi, il s'agit de mon cerveau.
But why?
Parce que grâce à lui, on peut réfléchir, bouger, faire des mouvements et penser.
My brain is my main organ.
My husband is my main organ.
It's my head.
I would say it is my heart, because if it stops beating, then I'm not going to be alive anymore.
I'd say the brain, for sure. It's command central.
It's my brain.
The brain.
The brain.
The human brain.
What is your main organ?
Probably his brain. Oh, mine's broken, so I use his.
I use his heart, so it works very well.
We're like the Wizard of Oz.
Какой твой...
What is your main organ?
My main organ, my most important organ, is the brain.